Joseph, thanks for joining today's show again. We're going to start with the H-1B LCA problem that happened with two of our clients. We're going to start with the news, we're going to start with the success story filming, and then we're going to jump into the news, and we're bringing in somebody really special today to talk about the news. And the news is regarding ICE fining people if they don't carry their identification with their legal status. So that's a really interesting thing that actually happened to one of our clients, how we got them out of it, and how they were able to get a green card afterwards. But if they didn't handle that correctly, they could have gotten fined, they could have lost their green card. It would have been a really bad situation. So that's a new segment that I'm going to do later because we're waiting for Margaret to come. But we're going to start with the H-1B, the success story. Actually, is Margaret here?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Hi, Margaret. All right, just kidding. Margaret's joining now. And then, like I said, feel free to ask questions about anything immigration related. We'll do the live filming of the success story. We'll do the live filming of the news. But if you guys are having questions, we'll pause. We'll answer a few questions and we get back to it. Okay? We are live from 12 to 1 o'clock. And so we're gonna actually do the news. I'll help you.
Oh.
Yeah. You've never done this before. So this is magnet that goes inside, and then this goes outside.
Just attaches to me?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So let me give the intro real quick, and let me see. This is okay to see. I don't want them to be able to see that because. Oh,
yeah.
are these? These are just separate things, right?
Yes, this is the stuff that you gave me.
Oh, okay,
This is
okay.
the law. And this is the actual case.
All right.
This.
Okay. There we go. In case. This is the only thing to watch out for. All right. Good? Mm-hmm. Cool? All right. Oh, you're tall.
I know. Let's bring this down. Started and we're like, why?
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Are we the same height now? How does it feel being tall?
It feels good. My feet are dangling, but I feel powerful.
Oh, yep. I feel powerful too. I'm wearing my new duck tie. All right. Ready?
Yep.
The news story today is about ICE fining people when they don't carry their identification. And somebody from, I think, Chicago got fined $130 because they didn't carry their paperwork with them. They said they're a resident. They say they're a citizen. ICE says, who are you? Don't have it. And eventually got fined for it. Is that okay? This happened to one of our clients just, a couple weeks ago?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, about 2 weeks ago.
It wasn't even at an international airport. It was
in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, so they were just flying. It was a domestic flight, and then what happened?
Yeah, so she was basically flying from Dallas to LA, and she had filed her I-130, I-45 application, but she was a J-1 overstay, so she technically didn't have any status. And then essentially as she was returning, the CBP officer was asking her for her passport along with her visa, which she didn't have.
Was it a CBP officer?
Yes.
She was returning back to the LAX?
Yes.
Okay, so the CBP officer at LAX was questioning...
No, in Texas.
Into Texas,
Yeah.
was questioning, what is your status? Do you have your paperwork?
Right.
Again and again.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then she was basically trying to avoid because she didn't have anything.
Yeah, so what did she say?
She was just like, well, do you need my visa? Or I thought you just needed my passport. So it was kind of like this dance with back and forth with her trying to avoid the question, essentially.
And it was her and her husband?
Her and her husband, yeah.
So, J1 overseas, she was an international trainer. She got the visa. She came to the U.S. and then got married and filed for adjustment of status. She would be able to get the green card. We are in the process of getting her the green card. Just a few more weeks, and then she actually got the green card. But during that window between getting her green card and not getting her green card, stopped by CBP officer and was questioned about their status. And because she didn't carry the identification, that officer could have fined her. And it could have been a misdemeanor. And so this was so scary that afterwards I did a deep dive to kind of find out exactly what are the rules and what are parameters, who has the authority, who doesn't have the authority, and what are the basis. And it's actually quite interesting. And only very recently we found out somebody in Chicago actually got fined, right? We always hear about the threat, right? We always hear ICE agents, CBP agents, USCIS agent, carry your identification, right? Please carry your identification, or it's a violation of federal law. We've been hearing that for decades now, but I've almost never seen somebody get fined or actually have a conviction because they didn't carry their green card with them or carry their I-94 with them. I mean, just check, right? It's like, but in this case, our client was extremely scared. At the end, they were able to get passed without, because again, it's a domestic flight. It was an international flight, and the CBP officer just kept on asking. And they even said, I'm just trying to help you, right?
Right. And then our client was just like really flustered, but I think eventually the officer was just like, whatever, he just didn't want to deal with it. So.
Yeah.
But they were ready to run, and they were just already thinking the worst.
Right. It is so scary. But luckily, nothing happened to our client. They were able to get passed, and then they were able to get the green card afterwards. But this unfortunate soul, where was it at? Let me see. I think it was in Chicago. Yeah. So we found out there was a Chicago individual who got fined $130. The lawyer community has been talking about it, debating about it. And the thing is, this is the thing that most people don't know, and we don't even really know this. It is a federal law, and it is a misdemeanor. It carries with it a misdemeanor charge. It's just, to the best of our knowledge, no one has ever been convicted of a misdemeanor because they did not carry their I-94 with them. They did not carry their green card with them, because ultimately it is a criminal offense, and so the Department of Justice needs to assign this case to a Department of Justice attorney and file a case in federal court to convict them. And that is just not something in the past 10, 20 years attorney generals cared much about. There's so many other big fishes to fry. You're not going to convict somebody for a misdemeanor because somebody didn't carry their identification. It's on the books, but it's rarely ever used. But it is, ultimately, that is something, it's more like a warning. Like, you really should carry your identification, or it could be a violation, right? It's just like, don't jaywalk. It's dangerous to society. Some people do it. Rarely do people get convicted, and if people do, it's basically to keep order, right? But how did this Chicago man get fined $130? Because that's not part of the statute. So when you look into it, it's not really part of the statute to be fined, right? So ICE agents, they're supposed to arrest, give a citation, and give it to the Department of Justice in order for them to come in to say, okay, is it a misdemeanor or is not a misdemeanor? So in this case, it was more like a administrative fine, and then you can appeal that. But it's scary that this is the world that we live in. So it is not really part of the statute to, you didn't carry your identification of your legal status. Okay, therefore you automatically get this $130 fine or $500 fine or more. It is more so, it's like a civil penalty. It is not part of the statute. And then further diving into it, who can issue this? Who can issue these fines if you don't carry identification? Can California Highway Patrol do it? Can DMV do it? Who has the authority? This is a federal law, so only federal workers can technically do it, right? So TSA agents, ICE agents, of course, CBP agents, USCIS, the consulate, the federal agents, they are authorized to report this to the Department of Justice, and in order for them to issue the conviction, but they can also do civil fines. So I don't know, what is your take? Any questions so far?
Yeah, a couple unrelated questions.
Okay.
So any update on the H-1B lawsuit? Like any court dates, hoping for an injunction, TRO?
No updates that we've heard of so far on the H-1B.
For the DACA in Texas,
yes.
Do you think they'll wait until the work permits end, or just immediately end the work permits?
Good question. Let's provide some context. The Texas lawsuit on the H-1B basically says that work authorization is harming the Texas welfare, and so people who are on DACA should not have work authorization. So that's the state, the federal court ruling in that instance. So technically now what USCIS in Texas needs to do is send an official notice saying your work authorization has been terminated and has been revoked. And so for workplace enforcement purposes, right? So if you are an employer and you have employees who are on DACA who have work permits, you are not in violation of any federal law right now. You're not in violation of I-9. You're not going to be fined. You don't have jail time for employing somebody who's illegal, even though there is this Texas court ruling. But once USCIS issues these, it is the employee, the DACA recipients who have the work permit, it's their obligation to resign, to tell the employer. The employer, for all intents and purposes, their I-9 is still compliant, but obviously when you need to renew the I-9, if you ask your employee for work authorization and they don't have it, and you still continue to employ them, then you're in violation, right? So hopefully that gives you that context. So just because there's a court ruling doesn't mean suddenly it instantly changes. It's still up to the agency to send it out.
And how long does it typically take to get a work permit with U visa?
We don't do that many U visas. I really don't know. My guess, if you file it, it takes 6 months to 9 months, but that's just purely a guess. We don't do U visas.
How long does prima facie on VAWA protect from deportation?
I would say if you have a VAWA application and you have a receipt, ICE will not likely deport you because it is an equitable state. It's kind of like having an adjustment of status pending. But if you are in any sort of other violations, they can say, well, even if this was already a green card, they could still deport, right? And obviously, you'll have a case pending with USCIS. If USCIS denies it or calls you in for an interview and then denies it, then ICE can immediately book you, right? So it is a very strong equitable defense. And right now, you definitely need to carry the 797 notice to show that you've already filed it and it's pending, because like our client who did file a 45, but they didn't have it with them, I can say you didn't carry identification. This is a misdemeanor offense. Convict you of a misdemeanor offense. Once you have a misdemeanor offense, can your adjustment of status still get approved? Maybe good moral character, you have more than one misdemeanor offense, therefore you don't qualify. It becomes a catch-22. You see what I'm saying? Not exactly catch-22, but it starts a snowball that rolls out of control. You don't carry your identification, you get a misdemeanor. The misdemeanor triggers a good moral character analysis, and then if you already have one other misdemeanor, suddenly two compounds together, it's a significant offense, and then you don't get your green card, and then now you're deportable.
So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in chat. My partner is a citizen. We have a child together. I missed my court date. What are the options?
Contact the court, reschedule, right? Hopefully it doesn't automatically close, and then it becomes a removal order.
How long are citizenship applications taking?
Have you done one recently? Yeah.
Yeah, I think they've been moving along fairly quickly. In the past, it was about 6 to 9 months. We filed one recently that just got approved, I think, a couple days ago. So it was about, I would say, 3 months.
Yeah, wow.
So it's been, as long as there's no other, I think if there's a criminal record of any sort, then we've seen those cases take a little bit longer. But generally speaking, they are processing quicker than in the past year or so.
I always say 6 to 9 months to almost all our clients, but yeah, we have been seeing things a lot faster, and not just citizenship cases too. 45 cases, some I-130s, even some waivers, right?
So I wanted to ask about this identification. Who exactly has to carry their IDs?
All non-citizens, green card holders, visa holders, people who are paroled into the U.S., right? People who are in removal proceedings, but they're paroled out, so carry those identifications. Now, this wasn't asked, but this is something that a lot of clients have asked us. Who cares? Who's gonna be asking me for my identification? I've lived in the US for 5 years, 10 years. Nobody asks me for identification unless they are a racist, unless they're like somebody who just wants to start beef. But government agencies, banks, schools, rarely do they ask, right? Work authorization we get because it is an offense to hire somebody illegally, but other than employers, who, and other than like USCIS to when you're applying for benefits, who cares who's asking? And so we know ICE is asking because that is their primary job right now, to try to find who is illegal and to book them. And so they need to know who has status and who does not have status. And when ICE agents go into the crowd and ask, who here is illegal, no one's responding. So they have to check each individual person, and they inadvertently, accidentally, or intentionally, who knows, but a lot of US citizens have been booked and it suffered, and it sucks. I've heard of, now I'm fuzzy on my memory, but I thought I heard there was a US citizen that got booked in, and because they didn't have the citizen passport, they got fined by ICE. But it's like purely hearsay. I'm not 100% sure on that. But if you are not a US citizen, if you're a green card holder, if you are somebody who was on an H-1B visa, E-2 visa, and you don't have the 797 paperwork with you to prove that you have valid status, they can fine you.
Now, when you say identification, or does that like real ID, driver's license, or do you need the actual like work permit as well?
Your lawful stay in the U.S. So work permit is great. It's not, 100% foolproof. The thing that they really want is the original 797 copy of your lawful status in the U.S., right? Or obviously your passport with a visa. Now, taking a big step back, speaking to immigration practitioners, right? If you are an immigration practitioner or you've been in the immigration field, this is the things that you will know. You could have a passport, you could have a visa that show that you entered legally, but does that document show that you're legal in the US? No, right? Because you could have violated your status, right? Let's say you enter the country as a tourist and you're doing something that you're not supposed to as a tourist. Well, then your status could be voided, right? You could have a visa that says you could stay here for 6 months, but because of a traffic ticket that happened earlier this year, your visa could have been revoked by the Department of Homeland Security. So you are again illegal here, right? Is there any actual real document that proves right here, right now, this instant, that you are legal? I don't know. If you have a green card that is valid, maybe. But we know sometimes even that's invalid, right? You can have a green card, you enter the US, but you might have a court proceeding about adjudicating whether or not you've abandoned it. So do you have legal status or not, right? But the point is, if you show these things, at least ICE won't bother you or fine you. I think what they're really trying to do, and the news that's going out, and we're going to probably see a lot more of these, is when ICE agents, when TSA agents, when CBP agents, when there's different people where they're in their normal day-to-day work, and they're trying to figure out, do you have status? Do you have status? Do you have status? And you don't carry it, and you put burden on them, and now they issue you a fine, and that's going to be much more prevalent. And so, recommendation for people who have status in the U.S., adjustment of status pending, VAWA pending. If you have, you're a foreigner, you have H-1B visa, carry those things with you to at least show them, so that you are not part of the people that they are trying to arrest. And again, if you don't have paperwork, at least carry the things that have equity in it. So maybe they will book you and then you could be bailed out, right?
How long does... Okay, so this is a question about DACA advance parole. How long does it take to get approved for advance parole on DACA, and how long can you be out of the U.S.?
3 months, 6 months for advance parole. That's 6 months seems a little bit long, but I think 3 to 6 months for advance parole. And how long can you be out with advance parole? From all the cases that we've seen, you could be out for as long as the advance parole is valid. But you got to be very careful with looking at the advance parole, because some people, like we did it for a whole family, and guess what? Mom, 2 kids, got an advance parole that lasted, I think it was a few years, right? Great. The dad only got it for 3 months. The dad didn't look at his advance parole. The other people did. The whole family left. They stayed over 3 months. When they wanted to come back, guess what? The father can't come back. He's actually quite stuck, and that's a case that we're actively working on. So advanced parole, as long as it's valid and you prove that you did what you said you were going to do, generally CBP officers are fine with you coming back in.
Have you had any EWI clients lately that were detained and granted bond, or is it a firm no on this?
And EWI is an enter without inspection. It is a mandatory detention if somebody entered without inspection. At least that's from all the policies that we've seen. So if somebody entered without inspection, whether it's this year or 20 years ago, and they're here, and they don't have a valid, status to be able to adjust to, if ICE does pick them up, it is a mandatory detention. Have we seen any bonds? No. Yeah. Have you?
No.
Yeah.
How long is it? Sorry. The names are incorrect on my EOD card as a pending asylum seeker, but I submitted a correction form. Any advice, recommendations?
No, just wait.
Even though they're not accepting new DACA applications, can I still submit one?
Yes.
I applied for EAD under CIGIS, as I have deferred action. It's been 200 days, no response from USCIS.
Use Emma to check the USCIS chatbot and to contact the tier 2 officer and also call in. 200 days doesn't seem that long, right? 180 days is 6 months. 6 months for adjudicating something is USCIS. But I would say if it gets past 9 months to a year for an EAD card, it is getting to the longer end. We file lawsuits for EAD cards, I think around the 15-month mark. So, yeah.
The N400 application, it asks males about military enlistment. Now, as an F1 student, do I need to register?
Well, you are an F1 student, so you don't need to register, right? But once you become a green card holder, then you should. And then if you don't, and then you want to apply for citizenship, then that's a violation, right? So if you're an international student, if you're international, you can't serve in the U.S. military, right?
Someone wants to clarify that citizens do not have to present their passport or paperwork to ICE.
That's right. If you are a citizen, that law doesn't apply to you because that law is saying if you are not a citizen, you must carry, right? So if you say you are a citizen, then you don't carry. However, here's a very big, bold warning. If you say you are a citizen and you are not, and they find out, that is a permanent bar. Meaning there's no way around it. There's no waivers that can be able to get you. Maybe a U visa down the line, but at least all the cases that we do, it's a permanent bar. So if you are a citizen, you say you're a citizen, fine you for this. However, they could still drag you through the turmoil of getting checked. So they could take you back to their office, they could contact USCIS, they can try to see if you are a US citizen, if you have naturalized or if you have a passport. And that's how we saw US citizens get booked for a week plus. And because a lot of US citizens don't actually speak English, right? Over the years, you can imagine 50-year-old grandpa, grandmas who just immigrated and they've been here for a while, and they can't speak English well. Or they have the dementia, right? And they can't. So, so that's a very terrible thing. Just for reference, I carry my identification as a U.S. citizen, just in case there's any mix-up.
Have you seen any permanent residents be deported due to a DUI?
None of our clients, no, and we've done easily over 700 entries for green card holders who are overseas and who have been concerned, but not over DUIs. But that's because essentially the new law hasn't come out yet, right? We have seen green card holders who have been deported because of drug offenses that happened years ago.
If you overstay your visa, will they detain you?
The better way to answer that question is if you overstay your visa, now you are deportable. Whether or not ICE, USCIS, somebody's going after you depends on how high on the priority list you are, or if you have just the bad luck of getting swept up by a raid. So you are deportable. The government wish you could just leave on your own volition, and they don't have to deal with you. And a lot of people end up that way, right? But if you just continue to stay in the U.S., 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, suddenly you're accruing unlawful presence, you have a 10-year bar, and if one day you get accidentally picked up, then you get deported, right? That's how the current immigration system works. Now, obviously, ICE is supposed to go after high priority targets, but they're also doing raids that they're sweeping up a lot of people, and people who are inadvertently harmless, but they are in violation of immigration law because you have overstayed, then you are now deportable.
If someone has a pending I-130, but then got divorced, found love again, can they remarry and get a green card that way?
Have we done a case like this? Wait, say that again? Say it again?
Pending I-130.
Pending I-130, divorced.
So okay, so now that I-130 is useless, and then
Find love again, remarry, while the I-130 is still pending.
yeah. Do you remember?
I don't know if it was pending though, because I know we've had a lot of situations with like the I-751s where they remarried and got divorced.
Actually,
but
you didn't work on the Russian case.
No.
That was just purely Gabby. Exact same situation. Russian man, Russian woman, I-130, divorce. I-130 still pending. Find new love. Found new I-130, got a green card. Had to explain the whole thing. And we actually did a live on this maybe 6 weeks ago or something. If you scroll down, you could find it. But yeah, so Gabby and I, the Russian case, that totally happens. Margaret does even more complicated ones.
So in that example, do they still have to prove like the bona fide marriage for the previous one?
Yeah.
Even though it's like okay.
Yeah, but they had a kid together. You know,
Okay.
the first marriage had a kid. But yeah, like for example, you've done cases where it's like you got married and you got divorced, you got married to the same person again, right? And then got it, or you got married and then divorced, and then you try to get the permanent 10-year green card. Do you remember what is the shortest marriage in your recollection?
I've seen a lot of cases where they were married for like less than a year and
Yeah.
then they got divorced, or they got their green card and then immediately after divorce, and then now they want to file a waiver.
Right.
So that's
So the marriage was less than a year.
Yeah.
Was there ever a case marriage less than 6 months? Or is like 9 months?
No, probably. I don't know that I've seen less than 6 months.
It's really hard for less than 6 months because you get married to get divorced. It takes 6 months to 9 months in California.
Right.
But yeah, less than a year is definitely really hard. And then finding new love, right? And then you file again.
Do you think immigration is generally more favorable when you're coming from countries with similar standards like UK or Ireland?
Generally, yes. And there's so many caveats to that. So first of all, if you're from, quote unquote, a first world country, it's the consulates that's adjudicating the first wave, right? Your tourist visa to come into the US, etc. They use a lot of statistics. So if you're coming from a country with 90% fraud, meaning everybody who comes here never leaves, they're going to be stricter. Versus if you come from a country where there's no fraud, or like only 5%, the consulates are easier. So that's the first wave, right? Then the second wave, when you're in the US or when you're applying for applications for benefits, they also adjudicate again the chance of this application being fraudulent or not. Now, a lot of times people overstay, and what is your explanation? And are you harming the U.S.? Are you working illegally? Are you faking a marriage just so you can work here a little bit longer so you can collect money and send it back home? Do you have do you have to have a spouse and children back at home that you're secretly harboring? You know, there's so many other of these questions, and depending on where you are in the economic strata and your background, your skin color, your perception, your education, they adjudicate everything accordingly. So I wouldn't say it's a flat out, if you're from, you know, the UK or Canada, your case is going to be perfect. Because there are complicated cases that are from those countries. And I'm not going to say if you're from countries, and I'm not going to name certain countries, but you know, there's a lot of Southeast countries that is very, very difficult to get any sort of visas. But not to say those can't be done, right? So what's really important is to really prove your own individual case, your education level, your work, your how you met, and how do you put the package together.
What about like a Somalian case?
Cool. I don't know. Have you done a Somalian case?
No.
I don't. I remember I did a couple connotations on that. But yeah, I mean, again, going back to the merits of the case is much more important.
Right.
I have an approved EB1, almost 3 years in the U.S. I entered with an ESTA, no unlawful presence, and I have a pending asylum case now. What are my options to get a green card?
Well, asylum, you are already on track for the green card, right? Again, we don't do asylum cases, but asylum is to try to get a green card. So I'm assuming you're saying, well, what other options other than asylum? Then you have to close your asylum case and then adjust with your adjustment of status, but that's going to be really difficult. You might have to leave the country and then go to the consulate to get the EB1 approval and then come back in, right? So that's the decision to make. How strong is your asylum case? Are you willing to leave? What are chances of coming back, right? So those are things that you want to analyze.
My I-130 is approved. My 485 got denied because I missed the interview. I appealed. It was dismissed. What do I do now?
I don't know. Could they refile?
If you're married to a U.S. citizen, just refile a 45. If you're not married to a U.S. citizen, it's a green card holder, there's a priority issue, you might be stuck and you might have to leave and you might have to apply for a waiver.
Can DACA be renewed yet?
If you already have DACA, yes, you can renew if right within the guidelines. So yes, everybody's still renewing. We're renewing every day. If you've never filed it, that's the problem. But if you're asking about renewal, yeah, people are renewing it.
My husband and I have been dating. We dated for 10 years, and we just got married. Will it be suspicious that he didn't petition for me before?
Not necessarily. That's a much better story than the other way around, right? Like, you're unlawful here, let's say, and then you fell in love, and within 10 days you elope and filed. That's a little bit more suspicious, right?
How does reckless driving affect advanced parole on DACA? The original charge was DUI, but it was dropped.
Great question. The advanced parole you really want to split into two. One is filing with USCIS to get the advanced parole in the mail, and the second is when you come in and see the CBP officer to activate the advanced parole to let you come in. Both need to succeed in order for it to work. Reckless driving, criminal offense, filing for advanced parole, almost disconnected, right? The person who's adjudicating advanced parole, they're not really going through reviewing all of those other things. So no worry about that, especially if your DACA was approved or renewed successfully, even less to worry about. So advanced parole, just focus on the reason why you need to be abroad, you should be fine. But once you get the advanced parole, if you have the criminal record and you're seeing the CBP officer, they are seeing, okay, you have an advanced parole, you're trying to come in the country, but are you safe? Are you going to be, are you harming U.S. society? Then they see the criminal record. And if it's a reckless driving, then they're doing a good moral character analysis. If they think you might be harmful, they might deny your entry. So that, I think, is the focus of your question. If you think the CBP officer will let you in, great. Personally, reckless driving, pull the transcripts, see exactly how fast you're going, where you were, was it a DUI, was it related, are there other concerns, you know, and are you able to explain it to the officer? Like, I was just going 70, but the officer, pulled me over. Right? So it really depends on the circumstance and if you can prove it and convince the officer.
So if I have DACA, but I overstayed, so I did enter with inspection initially, to get citizenship, do I have to go through the advanced parole process?
If you entered with inspection, so you enter with a visa, and then you overstayed, and then you got a DACA, and then you marry a U.S. citizen, you do not need advanced parole.
Can a green card holder marry an F1 student and get them the green card after 6 months of dating?
The answer is yes, but you won't get the green card in 6 months, right? So yeah, it doesn't. You could date for 10 days, like I said. It's just a little suspicious, but it's totally possible, right? I'm not going to say that kind of love doesn't exist, right? A lot of things can happen in 10 days, but green card holder, marry F1 student, petition, and you just have to walk through the entire process and then get a green card. You might have to make sure that the student stays in valid status, right, in order to file adjustment. But if your question right now is just concerning, well, how long do I need to date for before I file? It depends on the whole package, right? Who are you? Who are they? Your background. Make sure the marriage looks real. That's her expertise, by the way. Yeah.
Anything to add, Margaret?
No, essentially just proving bona fide marriage. Like Joseph said, it doesn't matter. It is like a little bit of a shorter period, but having those, explaining your bona fide marriage.
Anything related to love and marriage and relationships, you gotta have a good Latina woman looking into things. You know what I'm saying? like they dig deep. And they're like, yeah. So if you could convince her, probably convince the officer.
I'm guessing there's still no physician exemption for the H-1B.
Not that I know of.
Is O1 a viable alternative?
Absolutely.
I'm filing for VAWA. Can I also know my I-485 if I entered illegally? I don't have I-130. Parent is a victim on this case.
Say the whole question again?
Filing for VAWA.
Uh-huh.
Can I also know my 485 if I entered illegally? I don't have I-130, and the parent is the victim on this case.
I don't believe so, but I would want to go and double check that. I don't believe so. The reason is, if you want to file a 45 adjustment of status, you need to be on one of the qualifying conditions, and typically, if you file 45 adjustment, you need to qualify for 245A, and you need to have entered legally. But so if you had entered legally, then you could file a 45 connected to your parents being abused. But if you entered illegally, then you don't have the claim to file the 45. So even if you did file 45, it will be rejected. That's my understanding so far.
What is a realistic timeline for 601 waiver plus 485?
That's a very tricky question because most 601 waivers are not 45, right? Only a very small set of clients are that. Almost all the cases we do for 601, like how many have we done this year? 601s?
Well, we've had 5 601A approvals this year. So assuming they just mean like the I-601A process to get a green card, maybe that's what they're asking. So initially, once you file it, it's taking about, well, usually it's been about 3 years. This year we've seen it's lowered to about 2 years to get processed, but then you still have to go to interview in wherever country, let's say Ciudad Juarez. So that could take another 6 months. So overall, I would say realistic time frame is 3 years from the time you file to get your visa.
Yeah, and for us, at least 3 months to 6 months to prepare the 601, right? I mean, unless you have everything perfect, maybe we could do it in 2 months, but typically a lot of clients, 3 months to 6 months to prepare the 601. We file 2 to 3 years, approval, go to the consulate and approve. Now, there are small selective cases that do 601 and 445 concurrently, which is crazy because some clients of ours, and we've done success stories on these, where they went to the 45 interview, and then the officer basically gives them a request for evidence and wants to deny them or gives them a notice of intent to deny, and they have 30 days to respond and to have a 601, and then they hire us and we have to spend like 2 weeks to prepare a 601, respond, and then the case gets approved. So there are certain cases where the 485 adjudicating officer will require you to have a 601, and that 485 officer, after they review your application, they approve your 601 and 45 concurrently. But that's more rare.
Is it safe to leave the U.S. on a green card? I just got it this year.
It depends on when you're coming back and if you have any criminal history abroad or here. But all things being equal, you have no major criminal issues because you just got your green card. If you're just going for a short vacation and you're coming back, not a problem. It is your right, it's your privilege. That is the benefit of having a green card.
How can you get citizenship if you can't read or write properly?
If you're mentally disabled, right? You cannot learn, and you've been in the U.S. for like, a long time. I think was it 20 years? I think if you have a green card and you've been in the U.S. for like 20 years, and then and you have some disability and you get a waiver, then you don't have to read and write or speak English.
I entered legally as a child, no criminal record. I'm now married to a citizen. Is it safe to apply for a green card?
I was focusing on the sirens. Can you say that question again?
Yeah, I entered illegally as a child. I'm now married to a U.S. citizen. Clean criminal record, nothing like that. Is it safe to apply for a green card?
Yeah, what would the process be?
Yeah, so essentially it would be an I-601A waiver because they entered without inspection. And that is a lot of our clients.
Yeah.
So I would say, yes, it's safe.
It's safe. We do a lot of those. I think the first step is the I-130 petition, right, to prove the marriage relationship.
Yeah.
And then you file the waiver. And then once the waiver gets approved, then go to the consulate, get the visa, enter, and get the green card.
That's right, yeah.
Right, yeah. So, yeah.
For DACA recipients, would you normally recommend they do advanced parole to avoid having to go back to their home country for the interview?
So I'm assuming the DACA recipient is married to a U.S. citizen, so they can get a green card, because a lot of DACA people can't get green cards, right? So assuming DACA recipient married to a U.S. citizen, advanced parole, adjustment of status. I wouldn't say necessarily the purpose is to avoid going back to their home country. A lot of people who are DACA recipients, once they get the advanced parole, that's the first place they go, right? Because, you know, they've been here for so long, and they want to see what their home country is like, right? There's a lot of good memories there. Now, some DACA recipients do just go on like lavish vacations, but generally that's not the purpose of advanced parole, right? So if you got an advanced parole and all you're doing is just, you know, going to party, that's not a good look. But the reason why people get advanced paroles and they're married to a U.S. citizen is so that the way to get a green card is so much faster in the U.S. Dang, that's a lot of questions.
Yeah, we'll do another about 8 minutes of questions and then jump into the success story.
Okay.
So a couple of questions about K1 fiance visa. So first of all, is it a good idea? Will this person be stuck in their home country until the visa is approved?
Yeah. We just did a K1 for a French national, right? I don't know. In my opinion, is K1 is always a lot more tedious and a lot more difficult and just a lot of unnecessary stress. So I avoid it at all cost. But in this case, they had to be abroad, right?
Yeah, I think with K1 visa, there are a little bit more steps and it's a little bit more expensive, but it really just depends on the priority. Like if they really want to be with their significant other sooner, then I would really consider the K1. Because a lot of times when you do the I-130 petition and that's pending and it does take a while, we've seen a lot of our own like clients get very desperate with dealing with a long distance relationship. So I would say if the priority is being just with each other and you can handle like not being employed or whatnot, then go for the K1. But yes, it is technically a little bit more steps and it is a little bit more expensive. So
yeah, and so I think that position forces you to actually create a good case, right? So our client, again, the U.S. citizen left the U.S. to go to France to be with the significant other. And even then, there was still multiple challenges along the way. And that was like so scary. And our client was like highly educated, super smart, and capable. And yet, her husband still was challenged in multiple fronts. And then, but because they were together for like years, then eventually it all got approved, right? But again, they want to be together. They don't want to be separated. So force them to have a good case. But if you have a K1 case that, you know, there's not a lot of ties, and you're from a country with a high fraud rate, yeah, it's like you really have to prepare a really good case, or else there's just such a high chance of denial.
And how long do K1 cases typically take to get processed?
So the I-129, we say about 9 months to a year,
yeah.
right? And then after the I-129 gets approved by USCIS, then you go to the consulate, and that's another easily 3 months, 6 months. But depending on the consulate, it could be super long, right? Because this one, the appointments just weren't available, right?
Yeah. So depending on the consulate, I would say at least 6 months, but that could even be up to a year.
Right. So 1 year in the U.S. and then 1 year abroad, and then you get the visa, and then you come in, and then you get married, and then you file the adjustment, and then you go through the green card process, and that's another like potentially half a year to a year, right? So it's a long, long time.
If I file the waiver, will that help me not get deported?
No, that's kind of sad. So even with a waiver approval, it is not a full protection, right? Because to ICE, their main question is, do you have legal status here in the U.S. right now? So presumably, if you're filing for a waiver, you don't have legal status in the U.S. So if you don't have legal status in the U.S., then they can book you, then they could start the removal proceeding against you. The best thing about having a waiver approval is you can say, well, I'm about to leave next Monday. Don't waste everybody's time. Allow me to be bailed out. Let me head back. I'm going to fly out anyways. And then I'll get the visa and then I'll have a green card to come back in. But you still might have to go through the process of being, bailed out or bonded out or registered. Having a waiver pending, having a waiver approved is not a protection like it is having a green card or having arguably even DACA.
I'm assuming they're talking about I-601 waiver.
Yeah.
This is like I-751 approval.
Oh, or yes. Depends on what waiver you're talking about. So, right.
If after I get my 601A waiver approved, how long until my consulate appointment is scheduled in Juarez?
No, yeah, you've been doing a lot of these right now.
Yeah, I would say on average it could take up to a year
For the interview?
for the interview, yes.
Wow.
Especially, Ciudad Juarez has a very long backlog, so.
Wow.
It kind of also submits like when they did the whole DS-260 and the PK3 process, because
Yeah.
if that was submitted like in advance, it could expedite that process.
Uh-huh.
But otherwise, I would say just as a rule of thumb, it could take about a year.
Wow.
How long is our VAWA package receipts taking right now?
You mean once you file, how long before USCIS sends a receipt that they received it?
Yes.
Or, I don't know, 3 weeks?
My I-130 got approved, applying for 485, but what if spouse didn't follow their visitor visa conditions?
I would want to know a little bit more context on what you're talking about. I mean, the worst case scenario of that question is that they violated their status, and the immigration law will say that they are deportable, and so even if I-130 is approved, their 45 could still be denied.
Can I travel domestically with my VAWA receipt notice as proof?
This was our client, they had a receipt, but the CBP was still challenging them, like, do you have your paperwork? Do you have lawful status? Generally, at customs, if it's a domestic flight, you shouldn't be questioned by CBP, but in this case, they were. So there was a very scary incident,
Is DACA legal status?
Great question. Almost the public and everybody thinks it is. ICE and the courts say it is deferred deportation. So it is a status. It is not the same as a legal status as an international student. It is not the same legal status as an H-1B worker. It is not the same legal status as a green card. Definitely not a legal status like a citizen. It's a deferred deportation status. So the question becomes, is DACA a defense against being deported? If I have DACA, can you still deport me? And ICE have been saying, absolutely. It's not a matter of if I can deport you. It's a matter of when we will deport you. That's a very scary response. So unless some sort of law changes where there is a quote-unquote pathway to citizenship, so DACA can convert into the quote-unquote legal status and then quote-unquote convert to green card and then citizenship, it is not a foolproof defense against ICE and the way the immigration system is going right now. But I am optimistic. Next few years.
My parents came on D1, 245I, 25 years ago. Is it safe? Should I initiate an adjustment of status?
I would want to know more. Maybe you qualify for 245I, right? So if you qualify for that, yeah, that'll be great. Pay the $1,000 fine and boom, get a green card.
Does a minor dismissed case affect my 751 approval rate?
The answer is yes, right? Almost anytime somebody asks me, does this thing affect something? If you're concerned, the officer's going to be concerned, right? So does it affect? Yes. But is it going to cause it to be denied? Not necessarily. If you have a good explanation, could be fine. But if you're worried about it, chances are the officer might be worried about it too. So prepare a good explanation.
Okay, last question before we dive into our success story is advanced parole still worth doing under this administration?
Absolutely. Definitely do it. Go for it. Once you get the advanced parole, whether or not you want to actually leave or not and how long, that's a little bit more nuanced, but definitely apply.
Okay, and our final last question. Please explain fiance visa versus marriage visa in terms of wait time.
You do a lot more of these.
Fiance. So usually when you do the fiance visa, you have to do the I-129 petition. So that could take about 9 to 12 months, and then it gets transferred to interview, which again, it really depends on the country. So that could take another 6 months, and then the client or the applicant will enter the country, then we'll have to file for or get married within 90 days, apply for adjustment, which could take another 6 months. And then, so overall that could be at least like 2 years. And then it's hard to compare side by side, again, because of the whole consulate and the interview processing times, and because we don't know exactly how quickly the I-485 will be processed. And then with the I-485 process, for example, it's the I-130 petition. Again, that could take the same amount of time as a I-129, so 9 to 12 months. And then it gets transferred to for the interview. So I think they're about the same. It just depends on the country. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you get ultimately the green card, right? And so you add up all the times at the end, you get the green card. But during that process, where do you want to be together? Do you want to be in the U.S. together? So some people fly in and they do I-130 and 45 concurrently, so they're staying in the U.S. together, but maybe they can work legally, they cannot work. It depends on their lifestyle. If they're doing it abroad, well, then maybe the U.S. citizen needs to be abroad. They don't have to, but if there's a high chance of a K-1 denial, then you might have to restart that entire process again. I think that is the linchpin. You know, if you choose the K-1 fiance visa, but based on your circumstance and based on the proof, if there's a high chance a K-1 will be denied, then that's not a really good option to choose, because then you double the time or triple the time, or just it's impossible to get, right?
Yeah, I guess with our recent K-1 visa, I feel like it was probably a few months faster than an I-130 petition. So they had approved bona fide marriage like 4 different times versus having to do it like at 2 different checkpoints.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just.
Yeah, there's pros and cons, and we know all the details. She knows all the details.
Okay, so I want to jump into the success story now. And can you just pitch the success story to our audiences?
Okay. The success story is about H-1B visa. It's for a marketing agency, and we did 2 petitions for them. The company messed up. They put the wrong LCA number on one of them. And so now how do we solve this complicated issue? And that's what we're going to dive into. But thank you for joining, Margaret.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
Bye.
you.
And can I have your microphone, Margaret?
Yes.
All right. Whew. Oops.
No.
So the story for today is this marketing agency hired 2 completely different marketing strategists. One person was doing marketing, essentially, another was doing economic studies. The problem was when the company filed these 2 H-1B applications, they put the same LCA number, their job number, on both of them. The company, well, our firm, we filed 2 separate LCAs for the company, but when they were putting the application together, they actually filled it in incorrectly. But it was filed around July. One case got approved, great. The second case got a request for evidence. The request for evidence stated, hey, the LCA number you provided is already used up, so please submit a new one, or please provide proof that you submit a second one. This was extremely stressful for everyone involved because, well, it was already past the time to file new LCAs. We couldn't file a new one. We couldn't file an amendment, because if you file an amendment, you need to file a new LCA. So those were the traditional paths to solve the problem. Couldn't be done. The only option we had left was to file the response saying, please, it was a mistake, please forgive us. We did file 2 separate LCAs for 2 separate positions, and both got approved, but it was just a typo. In this administration, cracking down on H-1Bs, cracking down on positions that don't have a necessarily wage level 4, right? These were both just wage level 1, entry level marketing positions. And it's marketing positions. In Trump 101, when they cracked on H-1Bs, when his first term, they canceled almost all business analyst and marketing agents and marketing analyst positions. Like so many H-1Bs in 2017, all got denied. Previously approved in extensions got denied. That was how crazy, when there's so many lawsuits. So in this administration now, marketing agency, 2 marketing positions, a typo on the company's wrong, will they accept it? When we filed it, there was so much stress, but this was the way we got it to work. Again, I can't say that this was definitively the only way, but this is what we did. We contacted the service agency. We talked to the tier 2 officers multiple times, explaining the issue, seeing if they can put it into the system and if they can correct it, right? We did it for both cases. Because you know what? When the files were submitted, the 2 H-1B applications had 2 separate LCAs embedded in the application. It was just the form that there was a typo. So we did submit it correctly, but because of the typo, now it's potentially denied. But thank goodness we just got a request for evidence and it wasn't directly a denial. It could have been a direct denial because form mistakes, oftentimes it's direct denial. However, USCIS should be adjudicating the case not just purely on the form, but actually on the underlying facts of the case with the 2 correct LCA numbers. And if one LCA is used, how do they track the second LCA? So there must have been some sort of USCIS internal memo that's tracking how many LCAs have been applied for and how many have been used. And they've been using that database. And we needed to correct that databank. But nobody knows where that databank is and who corrects it. And how can you correct it? Should the first officer correct it or should the second officer correct it, right? Because the first officer already inputted the LCA, but then the second officer is now supposed to go back and change the LCA. Does that affect the first case? A lot of questions, nobody had answers. We reached out to AILA, the committees and the liaisons and the mentors. Nobody had a good answer. A lot of people say file a new LCA, file an amendment. File LCA, couldn't do it because the LCA time was already expired and the new amendment time was expired. Is the first employee going to be okay with the second employee filing this, potentially causing their H-1B to be denied? Is the second employee going to be really pissed off at the first employee for messing up their case? Is there going to be lawsuits that's going to happen? A lot of questions, no answers. The solution we came up with was to contact the service center, tier 2 officer for the first case, input it into the system. Hey, the LCA was incorrect, but we did submit the correct one. We contacted the second service center, tier 2 officer. Please correct it, adjust it, and we're going to file a response. And we filed the response with a clear table of the different LCAs and different numbers, and another clear table of a direct contact to the CEO of the company, to the attorneys that's working on the case, with their direct cell number and their direct email. So the officer who's adjudicating this H-1B case, when they see it, they say, okay, it is all corrected, but you have now direct access to the CEO and the attorney that can explain everything if you need to. It's not one of those, if you have any further questions, please reach out to me at my firm, sincerely, and just a header, right? That's what everybody does, but now it's big and bold. Like, this is really important to us. We're giving you direct access. If you have any questions, feel free to call. And we have seen that work in the past. I've gotten so many calls from USCIS directly, or from the consulate directly, because they want to check something. Instead of writing out something super long, send it and adjudicate. Sometimes it's just a phone call. To them, it's a matter of a button. They press a button, case gets approved. But if they have some further questions, by doing it this way, they can directly contact you. And I've been very appreciative of that with the government, and the government had responded in kind. And again, this case was approved just like last week. We're very happy to share that. And again, this was a solution that nobody knew about, and so we want to share that with you, right? LCA problem, typo problem. How do you solve it? You filed the case already, and now you have a request for evidence saying you filled it out incorrectly. Do you just respond saying, sorry? You could have done that. We could have done that. But it was so high stakes that we had to do so many other things just to ensure they see the good faith effort that was put into it. And that's the H-1B success story for a marketing analyst with a typo on the LCA. If you have any further questions about H-1Bs, feel free to reach out. Take care. And by the way, this was Grace's team's work, right? They spent their entire team this past month working on this case, contacting so many things just to make sure it was successful.
Okay, thank you everyone for watching. If we couldn't get to your question, you can always book a consultation on our website. We also go live at this time every week, so feel free to join us next time as well.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.